All right, so yeah, before we get started, I just wanted to introduce some of our grants team. These are the different folks who will be administering grants this year. If you've been a grant recipient in the past, you might see some familiar faces on the screen here. Jimena Cruz Cuevas is our materials management specialist. Kat Rhodes is our regional specialist for Benton, Lincoln, Lynn, Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties. Kathy Brown is our regional specialist for Coos, Curry, Douglas, Jackson, Josephine, and Lane counties. Lori Gordon is our regional specialist for Baker, Crook, Deschutes, Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Hood River, Jefferson, Klamath, Lake, Malheur, Morrow, Sherman, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wasker, and Wheeler counties. Lexi Meek is our regional specialist for Clackamas, Clatsop, Multnomah, and Tillamook counties. And Gretchen Sandow is our regional specialist for Columbia, Multnomah, and Washington counties. We do have a couple other DEQ staff in the room with us today. They've also played an integral role in the relaunch of this grants program. So Mia, Nikki, and Sana, thanks for being here, and thank you for all of your support. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So yeah, I'll begin with a bit of a, now on to our agenda. Yeah, I'll begin with a bit of a background on our Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine grants program. We'll share some of the updates of our program. We'll talk through the details of an example project and how it relates to our annual funding area. Then we'll have our pause for questions. And then I'll provide a brief introduction to our new online-based application platform to web grants. And again, we'll have some time in the middle and the time at the end for your questions. If you do happen to have any difficulties with Zoom today, you can reach out to Kathy by email, which she'll drop in the chat now. And she'll do our best to assist you if we're not able to help problem solve those Zoom issues. We can follow up with you, or you can follow up with us after the presentation. Next slide, please. So just a couple rules of engagement of how we can make sure this meeting today is successful. The meeting is set up so you may mute or unmute yourself. So please be aware of that and keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. During our Q&A, you can raise your hand virtually to speak, and we'll put you in the queue and then call on you in order of hand raising. You can unmute yourself during that by, so yeah, you can raise your hand in Zoom and then wait until you've been called on. And then, yeah, unmute yourself when you are called on, or you can also utilize the chat function to ask your questions if you would prefer. Next slide, please. Just a couple more Zoom logistics. I know a lot of us have used Zoom a lot by now, but just some information to make you all familiar with it. You can join our audio by phone or by audio on your computer, but please make sure you're just joining by one device. And yeah, if you're comfortable, we'd love for you to have your video screens on. Sort of seeing these live faces makes it for an engaging presentation, but no pressure to leave things on or off, however y'all want to engage in the presentation. And then in addition, if you're able to, it'd be really helpful if you can update your Zoom name with your name and the organization that you're affiliated with, if applicable. And you can do that by clicking on the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your photo and click rename. And again, if you run into any questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll get to them during our breaks, or you can reach out to Kathy if you have any Zoom issues. All right, next slide, please. So yeah, we're almost to the meat of the presentation here, just a couple more details. Today, as I mentioned at the start of this, you are attending the first of 3 scheduled information sessions. All 3 of these sessions will include the same presentation. The sessions will be recorded and they'll be available on our website a few days following the presentation. So that listed here are the dates for the other presentations we have coming up. Next slide, please. And then the week of June 10th, which is the full week before our pre-application due date of June 18th, we'll be hosting open office hours. So there'll be no presentation during our office hours, but there'll be a couple of DEQ staff in a Zoom room, and interested applicants can drop in to ask any questions related to their project or the application process. These sessions are not going to be recorded, but questions asked at these sessions will be noted and they'll be shared on our website. You do have to register to attend these, but you can pop in and out as you'd like. You don't need to stay for the full hour, and you can find sign-up links on our website. And I think Kathy will be dropping that website in the chat, so you can find that information there later on. Next slide, please. Okay, that takes care of the sort of meeting logistics stuff. Now to get into some of the info of why you probably are all here, background on our grants program and the direction we're moving in. So for a little background on our program, the Materials Management Grants Program first started in 1991 to support a wide variety of projects that reduce the impacts of waste, and has provided funding totaling over $9 million since then. Up until about 2015, DEQ's grants program mostly funded projects through local governments, who could then in turn offer pass-through funding to community groups, nonprofits, and small businesses. In 2020, the grants program was intentionally paused to address inequities in the application process, as well as to better align the program's purpose, goals, and objectives with DEQ's 2050 vision and the 2020 framework for action. START Consulting Group was selected from an RFP process to support DEQ through diversity, equity, and inclusion-centered program updates that are as clearly defined, effective, and inclusive as possible. Many of our implemented updates that you'll be hearing about later on in the presentation are the result of suggestions provided during 10 group and individual community engagement sessions. START Consulting hosted these sessions last spring. If you were someone who attended one of these sessions, thank you for your input. Next slide, please. Now to share some of the program updates that we will be implementing this year. This year, we will have $1 million to disperse in upfront funding, and grant recipients will have up to 2 years to complete their projects. In previous years, the program had a total of about $500,000, and a grant term was typically 1 year. In the past, spent funds were reimbursed after receipts were submitted and approved. This year, in order to make the grant opportunity more accessible to applicants, we are moving to upfront funding, where grant funds will be made in 3 installments over the grant period. 50% of grant funding will be dispersed at the signing of the grant agreement. After the first installment has been spent, the next 40% will be available, and then the final 10%. We also heard feedback about having a more focused funding area would help interested applicants decide if our grants program was a good fit for their work. With that feedback, we decided to focus on one funding area each grant cycle. This grant cycle, our annual funding area is waste prevention. The funding area will change each year, so if the project you have in mind this year does not fall under waste prevention, you can check back in future years and maybe that will align with your work. And then we also wanted to really encourage first-time applicants to apply to our program. So eligible first-time applicants will receive extra points during the application grant review. We strongly encourage projects that address inequities in BIPOC, rural, and underrepresented communities to apply. Next slide, please. With our updates, we've also redefined our program's name, as well as the purpose, goal, and objectives in order to help provide more clarity for potential applicants and to help us evaluate whether the program is meeting benchmarks each year. You may have picked up on it by now, but our new name is the Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine Grants. We hope that our new name ignites creativity as you think of community and environmentally focused work you would like to see implemented in your area. Our updated purpose is to support statewide efforts to reduce the environmental and human health impacts of materials at all stages of their life cycle. Our goal is to build local capacity and to support community solutions that address the environmental, social, and health impacts created by production, consumption, use, and disposal of materials. And the objectives of our grants program are to inspire promising solutions to reduce the impacts of materials by funding innovative projects and programs, to empower community solutions to reach environmental solutions, to create environmental and health benefits that result from more sustainable consumption and use of materials, and to advance equity and environmental justice by providing resources to historically underserved and underrepresented communities across Oregon. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we will be having annual funding areas each grant cycle. And again, for this cycle, our annual funding area is waste prevention. For the purposes of this grant cycle, we are defining waste prevention as an environmentally centered approach to reduce the consumption of natural resources and generation of waste before something becomes trash or pollution. Waste prevention activities reduce waste by changing product design, by using less, by using something longer, or by repairing it. Eligible projects for the 2024 Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine grant cycle must fit into our waste prevention funding area. Next slide, please. Excuse me. We also understand that we're sharing a lot of new information. So to help understand if a project you have in mind would fit our new criteria, we thought that it would be helpful to talk through an example project and explain how it fits our criteria and could be eligible for grant funding. Our example project is a low waste community cooking workshop. Again, this is just a theoretical example we made up for this purpose. A community-based nonprofit that serves recent immigrants to Oregon is partnering with local grocery stores and is hosting specialized cooking classes geared towards different cultural groups. Classes will provide resources on how to incorporate what in some cases may be unfamiliar food items and Pacific Northwest produce into culturally meaningful dishes. Classes will also include education around how to make the best use of the food found in local grocery stores and markets, how to prepare and store local produce to extend the shelf life, and how to prevent unnecessary food waste. Class notes, educational resources, and recipes will be developed for different cultural groups and will be shared year after year. Okay, so how is it waste prevention? This organization teaches individuals and families about low waste food shopping, storage, and cooking. Instead of letting unfamiliar food items go to waste, the family or individual learns how to shop for and incorporate new food into familiar and culturally specific dishes. Other educational components of the class, teaching folks how to store produce to extend shelf life, designating an eat first area in the fridge, and learning how to prepare food stored in the freezer that can't be used quickly are also components of waste prevention. What is the environmental benefit? Educating people on how to incorporate unfamiliar foods into recipes prevents throwing food away. Food waste is a significant problem. More than a third of all food for human consumption is wasted. The wasted food represents the waste of all the resources that went into producing it: the land, the energy, the water, the pesticides. Those production impacts are so high that preventing food waste has 6 to 7 times more potential to reduce greenhouse gases than preventing wasted food from going to the landfill. The demonstrated community benefit, the organization applying for the grant works with recent immigrants to Oregon who have stated that it can be a challenge to know how to incorporate the food items found in their new local grocery stores into familiar dishes. Providing educational and culturally specific resources on how to cook with local foods will help community members be more ingrained into their new community. Not wasting food also saves people money. The families can use everything they purchase at the store. That will reduce additional spending. How is it innovative? This is a new way of understanding why food might get thrown away and addresses the issues by providing education and meeting different community needs where they are, instead of trying to make them change into a new system. And again, we'll address on how it reaches the program's purpose, goals, and objectives. As we went over earlier, just for the purpose, this project will support statewide efforts to reduce the impact of materials. This project will provide education and resources to prevent food waste. For the goal, this program builds capacity and supports community solutions through the partnership of a nonprofit with local grocery stores to address food waste. For the objectives, for the program, for inspiration, a new program in this community, the project will add a community resource that reduces the environmental impacts of food waste. For empower, through community classes, the family is empowered to address the environmental impacts of food waste by learning how to shop for, store, and incorporate potentially unfamiliar ingredients into familiar dishes. Create, This project will teach a more sustainable way to purchase and cook with local produce and other groceries, creating extended environmental and health benefits. And for advancement, this program advances equity and environmental justice by providing resources to recent immigrants of Oregon, a group that is historically underserved and underrepresented. All right, next slide. Okay, so we have a little background there on the program. We have some time to pause for questions before we get into the next set of things. So if there are any questions, folks can feel free to, I haven't been watching the chat, so I don't know if things have popped up in the chat, but we can maybe address those first. And then if not, folks can raise their hand and we'll answer your questions as best as we can.
Hallie, this is Kathy. There are no questions in the chat so far.
All right, great. I think, I don't know. But yeah, if people have like questions that they'd like to throw out there, we'd be happy to answer them or oh, thank you. And we can, yeah, maybe pause for a minute to see if anyone thinks of anything. And if not, we can, the next portion of the presentation will go into like how to access Web Grants, which is our online application platform, and how at this point, since the applications aren't open yet, we'll just be reviewing how to create a profile to be able to apply.
Hallie, there is a question in the chat now from Kevin.
Yes. Let's hear it.
Kevin's asking, it says you had mentioned that this grant program was directed at local agencies. Are nonprofits now eligible to apply?
Yes, great question. Definitely, yes. Eligible to apply. That switchover happened in about 2015. So now this year we are accepting applications from local jurisdictions as well as nonprofits, small businesses, 50 people or less, public schools, universities, and community colleges, and tribal nations. I can view the chat, the questions too. So yeah, will a scoring rubric be provided so we know what is most important in the application? Yes, when the application goes live, we will have a scoring rubric that will show you like what we're looking for and how you answer your questions. The pre-application will have about, I think it'll have a handful of narrative questions, and then with that you'll be able to on our website access what we're looking for in those and how you answer those narrative questions. And again, if you think of a question like later on, we'll have time at the end to address those as well. So if nothing else comes up. Okay, next slide, please.
Hey, Hallie.
Yes.
Deveron threw in a question there. Can organizations submit more than one grant application? And are submissions with matching funds more competitive in this process?
To answer the second question, because I am sure the answer to that, matching funds will not weigh into how we score or review your application. So they are not required and won't factor into the scoring. And then the first part, I'm sorry, was can an organization submit more than one application? Yes. Yes. We can work with you. I think with web, we'll have to look into Web Grants and how that will work, but I believe that it should be set up in a way that one organization can apply for more than one project. Is the estimated amount of waste prevented as a scoring factor? I think it'll be best, we'll show, we'll share the metrics of how we're evaluating questions when we release the question. So you'll be able to see, because different projects will be preventing different kinds of waste. So how that gets measured will be more on how the project impacts the community and works in the community and addresses different aspects that will hopefully be clear once you see the scoring metrics. And if you have questions on that, once that's out, you can ask questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Okay, let's see. We're looking at a partnership between small business and a nonprofit. Is there a best way to frame this? Would they be considered a contractor of the nonprofit? There is an option, there is a space in the application that asks about, to like list about who you're working with. I think for the purposes of answering the questions in the pre-application, again, those just mainly address like the organization and the project and the community you work in. So those more details of how you'll be how that partnership will work will probably fall more into the main application questions. But yeah, this time I'm not certain how you would want to frame a partnership between a small business and a nonprofit. So we can make note of that question and then follow up with you. Is there a cap on the amount eligible per applicant? Yeah, we have a range that is the minimum is $25,000 and then the maximum someone can apply for is $125,000. Waste. Excuse me. Is waste meaning mostly solid waste? What about projects that reduce pollution into waterways? Waste is not limited to only solid waste. We will, yeah, I think a lot of it we'll have to maybe have more details on the project you're thinking about. You can reach out to us and we can chat through and see if that would like align with our goals and our purpose of our project. Is this a one-time only funding opportunity, or is there an option to have this grant be renewed and the project sustained past the 2-year grant period? This is a one-time only funding opportunity. So the grant project you're applying for will have funds that will need to be spent and used within the 2 years. Because then the next cycle will have a new annual funding area that might not align with like your project. How are first-time applicants defined? For example, if a city has submitted a previous grant in 2017, but the current submission is coming from a different division department in the same organization, will they be considered a first-time applicant? That's a really great question, and I think I'd have to check and confirm with my team before answering that. I don't want to say something that's incorrect, but we'll make note of that, and then we can follow up with you. Great, I'm like happy to see all these questions coming through. I was a little quiet at first, but it's nice to see that some questions have piqued other questions and we're going here. Okay. Well, again, the next section will be quicker and we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer more questions. So if it's all right with y'all, I might get going to that part. And yeah, next slide, please. Great, thank you. So yeah, the program updates portion of the presentation is complete. So we'll briefly now touch on the new application process. So in order to build a more accessible application process, we wanted to divide our applications into 2 parts, a pre-application and a main application. The pre-application will open on May 21st and will be open for about a month until June 18th. The pre-application will ask for a few narrative questions, but the pre-application will ask a few narrative questions. They'll have the applicant describe the organization and the proposed project. After the pre-application closes, a review panel will evaluate and score application materials. Top scoring projects will be invited to submit a main application, and we'll notify everyone who submitted a pre-application of the next steps around July 19th. If selected to submit a main application, applicants will have about 6 weeks to submit their application materials, which will include a few more narrative questions relating to their organization and the project, as well as a work plan and budget tables. Again, just please note that these dates are subject to change. If our timeline does shift, we will notify you. Next slide, please. This year, DEQ will be using an online software program called WebGrants. Applicants will submit pre-application and main application materials through WebGrants. The system is streamlined and should be very user-friendly. And we also have made guidebooks for the registration and application process, which are available on our website. If you have any questions regarding reliable internet access or other accessibility concerns, we're going to touch on those a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So these next few slides will show the step-by-step process in registering for a Web Grants account. If you will be using the Web Grants platform to submit an application, you must register and create a Web Grants account, and registration to create an account is open. You can visit the registration page, which is available on our website. We'll also send out a link and an email to you later this week. When you visit that website, you will click the click here to register tab in yellow, as highlighted on your screen. And I think Kathy might be able to drop the link in the chat to that, but don't look at it yet. You can keep paying attention. You'll just have it for your reference for later. Next slide, please. So the personal contact information is for the individual who will be completing the application on behalf of the organization. Please fill in all required fields. You will be asked to select your program area of interest from a drop-down menu, and you'll want to select the Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine grants. Be sure to save your personal contact registration information. Next slide, please. As the name of the slide indicates, this is where you will fill in the information for your organization. Please note that at the time of registration, you will not be required to submit your UEID number or your nonprofit status or the number of people at your small business, but those will be required should you be invited to submit a main application. Once you have filled in the required fields, again, please be sure to save your registration information. Next slide, please. After you have filled in and saved your personal and organization registration information, you will receive a confirmation email to your registered email account. And it'll look something like this. Next slide, please. When you create an account, a notification is sent to DEQ. Someone from DEQ will approve your account within 1 to 2 business days. Once approved, you will then receive 2 separate emails. One will contain your username, and then one will contain a temporary password. The emails will also contain a URL for you to access the Web Grants website. And then just please keep both of these emails for your records. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the Web Grants registration application guidebooks are available on our website. We will not be reviewing the application, like how to fill out this session. We're not going to review them at any sessions. The applications aren't open yet, but it won't be something we'll be covering in future sessions. If you do have questions about the process after you review the applicant guidebook, you can reach out to us and we will do our best to assist you. Please note that at this time, Web Grants is only available in English. Applications in Cantonese, German, Spanish, Russian, Mandarin, and Vietnamese will be available on our website. If you would like to request an application in another language, or if you have limited internet access or computer access, or if you would like to request additional support or accessibility accommodations, you can reach out to our grants team. And I think Kathy's going to drop our chat in the email. Okay. That's it. That concludes the presentation. So now if you have more questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat again, or you can raise your hand and ask them verbally. When will funds be dispersed? We imagine that the contracts grant agreements will be signed in December, January, so December of 2024, and then January of 2025. And once the grant agreements are signed, the first amount of funding will be dispersed in that 50% installment. And then once that is spent, we'll do the 40% and the 10%. Would the recycle or repurpose of fallen wood products fit into this grant? I think I would need a little more information on the project to really answer that. So I'd be happy to follow up with you after this, or you can follow up with me, or we can chat, but I'm not sure if that's quite enough information for me to have a solid answer.
Hey, Hallie, this is Kathy. Steve had a question during that last slide about assume there's no obligation to proceed to main application if invited.
Sorry, can you ask that again?
There's no obligation to proceed to
Oh.
the main application if invited.
Correct. Zero obligation.
Great.
Yeah, zero
Thank you.
obligation. More installments. So yeah, I see this from Callie, more detail on the 3 installments time frame. It will differ based on like the schedule of each individual person's cadence and how they're doing their work. So it is installed in those like 50, 40, 10 payout if you're and you have 2 years to do the project in. So if you complete the first 50% payout in 2 weeks, you can submit your receipts and submit your progress report and work with your grant administrator to get that second installment if it takes you 9 months to spend that first 50%. So it's on the schedule of your project. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying to, what kind of expenses does a grant allow? So yeah, what kind of expenses does a grant allow? Personnel, direct costs, admin and management. This grant program will cover a lot of those costs. There'll be more details in we have a handbook that will be available on our website like any day now, that will go into more of like what are allowable costs, what are costs that you can't adjust. I think there actually is some of that information on our website right now, that goes into like available costs and not available spending. We also have a list of some example projects on our website. Might be able to pull up our website and you can look at those. So I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. It's hard for me to, I think is the most recent question this one from Keith. Is there nothing that I'm missing before that?
That's correct.
Okay, great, thank you. So how can you prepare for the pre-application? What type of information will be required? So the pre-application, again, there's like maybe about 5, I can't remember off the top of my head, narrative questions that asks about your organization, your project, and the community in which you're working. There's not a lot to prepare for at this time. Just make sure you know how to talk about those things. And then when the application is live on the 21st, you'll have access to those questions and can answer those, and will be available by email, by phone, to help answer those ahead of time. And again, we have those informations, the office hours the week before the application is due. So if you're caught up on anything, you can drop into as many of those as you'd like to help, to have us help you answer some questions. But I would just say know how to talk about your project. It might be helpful to visit our website again. And on there, we have information on we address again our priorities, our purpose, our goals, and to see how you can talk about your project idea in relation to our program's purpose and goals and objectives. I'll put our website again in the chat. Oh, I don't know if I can. There you go. I'm happy to hear that it's been helpful. Thank you. And we have this scheduled for an hour, but the presentation portion is complete. We're happy to stay here for the rest of the time to help answer any questions. But you're welcome to stay or leave as you would like. Oh, yes. So a recording will be shared. It should be on our website in the next couple of days. You're also welcome to, if you'd like, we have one scheduled for the 22nd of this month, and then one, I believe, for June 1st. That will have exact same information. So you're welcome to pop in for the first half and then leave to catch that information if you'd like to engage with it that way. Okay, let me see this question. Can you clarify this ineligible program cost? any activity or program that supports mechanical, chemical, or other forms of recycling of paper, packaging, food, serviceware, or other products. So this cycle, this grant funding, this program won't be supporting or funding projects that are recycling based. So this is just a way to address that. Any project that like is focused on recycling of those materials will not be eligible. Did that answer your question? If not, yeah, we can chat. You can reach out to me. So I'm going to try to read these in order. I'll get back to your part two, Tabitha. Is there a benefit to coordinate cooperative partnerships between multiple nonprofits to achieve project goals? I think if other groups you're working with have similar, oh, sorry, the chat just went away. I don't think there's necessarily like a benefit. I think if you have, if you're working together and have similar ideas, you're welcome to apply and coordinate in that way, but you won't be scored differently if you're working with multiple groups. That won't influence how your proposal is scored. But if there's a way that you want to work as a united front, that's great. So then the part Tabitha's part two. If we have a program that reuses, repurposes, repairs, and recycles, would our entire program be ineligible because we recycle some products? I think we'd really have to see your project proposal and learn about what you're doing. We aren't funding any recycling projects, so it could potentially be if the repurpose, reuse, repair fits into our waste prevention work. Then we might be able to work with you on the application and say we can fund these things, but you can't you can't attribute the recycling part. But we really do need to see the grant application, and that's part of why we split our application process into the pre-application and the main application, in the hopes that the pre-application will be much less burdensome to fill out. It's not asking for budgeting tables and work plan tables. It really is just a couple of narrative questions to talk about your project and what you're doing. And then we can, if it does in that way align, we can let you know and say, these components work and this sounds good, or can give you the feedback that it's not a project we can fund. I don't know if I missed anything else in the chat. But yeah, if folks have other questions, I'm happy to, and again, you're welcome to unmute and ask them verbally if you'd like, whatever works for your question asking comfort level.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would outreach and education be a potential? Can we potentially do outreach and education if we're?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's an eligible cost and an eligible project area. As long as it is education and outreach relating to waste prevention. But yeah, those are eligible spending areas.
And I guess for context, it sounds like another year will be based about recycling. And then is there any other big bucket that you're looking at for the future that wouldn't be?
Yeah, so recycling actually won't be a year for our program. There'll be information about this in our handbook as well, but there'll be a new grant program out of DEQ that will there's a new law that will fund a lot of recycling work in the state. So because of that funding that will be available through the Recycling Modernization Act, our grant program won't be funding recycling work. And we don't have next year's annual funding area picked out yet. But we're hoping to be able to announce that sooner than the couple weeks before the grant cycle. This year has been busy just preparing for the whole program relaunch, but yeah, we hope to share future years funding areas with plenty of time for people to be able to work on their projects.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Maybe you could go over what is eligible for the grant funding. Again, my internet cut out right as you were explaining that part.
What is eligible? I
Well, as
might-
far as like expenses.
Oh, yeah, I feel like I might just put our I don't, because I don't want to misspeak to it. And we have in our website we have lots of resources available that talk about that. If it's okay to review it that way. And then if you
Yeah,
want
that's
to look
fine.
at that, if you have questions based on what you see there, I'd be happy to like follow up and answer any questions.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to. And happy to stay and answer things. And again, you could reach us by email after the fact. We'll follow up with this later on this week. Yeah, thanks for coming and asking your questions and being curious about this grants program. We're really excited to relaunch it and to be able to work with the community again on this grant funding. And are happy to be back after such a long pause.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
If we do win this grant, would we be ineligible for any DEQ grants that come through about the Recycling Modernization Act? Are they
No.
exclusive of each other?
Yeah, they are separate. Yeah, you'll still be eligible for those programs. Cool. All right. Well, yeah. And again, I'll hang out here until 4 just because that's what this was scheduled for, but you're welcome to stay or go as you would like. Yeah, thank you all so much for being here and asking good questions. Thanks, team. Let me see this chat. I think my chat screen is hidden. Yes, that is correct. I'm gonna try to. Mhm. Yeah, I think it's just. Thank you. I think it's just us now. Yep, just us. Okay, great. Whew. Thank you. Okay, we did it.
You did it.
Well, good support.
Well, and you guys did it. All I did was click a few buttons.
No, that was good. Can probably stop recording, right?
Oh, yeah.
So not that we're gonna say anything incriminating, but